Good morning, friends, and welcome to my today's lecture on the Lady Lazarus, a poem by Sylvia Plath. Before I come over to the poem and explain it, I would like to talk about what does Sylvia Plath deal with in her poem Lady Lazarus. Lady Lazarus is a poem written by Sylvia Plath which was originally included in Ariel, which was published in 1965. Ariel is a collection of poems 2 years exactly after her death by suicide. Now, this poem is commonly used as an example of her writing style. Lady Lazarus is a bitter dramatic monologue, famous for the themes of death and oppression. This poem gives hint to multiple suicidal attempts of the tormented speaker, that is Sylvia Plath herself. It also highlights the role of power and oppression in one's life. The poem is her most mature attempt to make sense of a mental illness, which leads to previous unsuccessful suicide attempts. Her family, which includes her father and mother, her ex-husband, and the cruelty, dehumanization, and absurdity of the modern world. Sylvia Plath takes her images of poetry from mythology, like the phoenix, and from religion, history, contemporary life, and events. She universalizes her images. Her personal experiences and universal events are merged together, or they are one in her mind. When we go through a note on Sylvia Plath, we would also see there are certain characteristics which are there in her, as she was a strong feminist. That is, women which have greater imagination and singleness of purpose. She also had a vision of future in which men and women cease to exist as he and she, and they were purely human beings. When we go through her poetry, we would realize that she was extremely sensitive also, and her poetry is compulsive, as is the poetry of all the confessional poetries, because we all know that she belongs to a group of confessional poets where one writes as she has written to satisfy her inner voice, or else her or his mind would not be peaceful. She was self-critical also and had terrible ego. She loved her face and flesh, and she loved freedom too deeply. Now, in this poem, when we talk about Lady Lazarus, this Lady Lazarus has been talked about as a biblical character, like the phoenix, which dies and comes out of its own ashes. That is, this character, like the phoenix, dies and is brought back to life by Jesus or Jesus Christ, as has happened with phoenix. Now, in the first paragraph, when we read through it, let us see, though the language or the diction is very simple and we could easily comprehend what she's trying to say. But there could be some meanings which are connotative when we read through the lines. So, when reading in between the lines also would help us a lot. Now, see, in the first paragraph, which reads, I have done it again. 1 year in every 10, I manage it. Now, the character Lady Lazarus that Sylvia Plath has portrayed herself as is a quasi mythological figure, and the woman is reborn after every death. So does happen with Sylvia Plath as she has portrayed in this poem. In the context of this poem, now dying is attempted in the form of suicide, and this poem tells us about 3 of her suicidal attempts during her 30 years of life, which is visible in her first paragraph. Now, after the third attempt, she was in a way very disinvolved with suicide. The first, as it reads, I have done it again, means this was her third attempt. 1 year in every 10, I manage it. She tries to, every 10 years, she makes a suicidal attempt, once in every 10 years, and she says that she manages to kill herself, but she's brought back to life. This deals with death as an event, like any other event in her life. She's looking at the fact of suicide ironically. We would come to know this when we read through the poem. She was 30 and she had thrice attempted to put an end to her life. Though the first incident, we will come to know, was just an accident. But she considers that accident also as an attempt. So she managed to make an attempt. The remaining poetry I'll be doing in my next lecture. Till then, thank you and goodbye, friends.